Thank you, everybody. So on to our next topic, build understanding on how to effectively communicate with the NDIA and other service systems. Now, in the last few years, and we know it'll happen again, terminology changes and language changes. So it's always good to keep up and know what's happening and what the past languages were and what the future languages are. You may have heard some old terms or be unfamiliar with terms. We like to use both on this webinar today, so you can get an idea of the new ones and the old ones. But up on screen, you will see some of the things. We're not going to go through them all today, but take the example, plan variation used to be called a light touch plan review. Looking at the next slide, we can see that an internal review of decision used to be called an S100 review. And again, on the next slide, we can see lots of different terminology there, what it used to be called. You may have heard of S48 review for a plan reassessment. But we all know that common ones stay the same. So an LAC is your local area coordinator. An ECEI partner is your early childhood education intervention partner, and the AAT is Administrative Appeals Tribunal. So we're going to have a look at who's who. Local area coordinator, as I said, is your LAC. Their role is to support you in understanding the NDIS. They're there to help create plans for the NDIA delegates to approve. They're there to support you to implement your plan as well after you get it, and then to help reassess the plan. So we always like to say, if you don't get along with your LAC, you can contact the office and request a new one or a new LAC provider. Backing this up with your reasons does help. So maybe there's a conflict with their values and yours. Looking at the word planner now. The planner is the person, the NDIA delegate that actually looks at the created plan from you and your LAC and approves it or changes it. Now, most of the time the planner is there by themselves, but you can actually access a planner. So if an LAC has not been able to meet your needs and you have evidence to support your needs, you can request a planner. Firstly, discuss your concerns with your LAC, and they may be able to address them. But if not, they can make a referral to transition from the LAC to the planner. If you're not feeling supported in this process, you can email the feedback line in order to get some assistance to resolve this situation. Moving on to the next one, a coordinator of supports. Sometimes you'll hear us say COS, or you might hear the term support coordinator flipped around. And this is someone who's funded in some participants' plans to build the capacity of participants to implement their plans. Self-managers can now use core funds to engage support and coordinator of supports, or COS. We do, however, like to say that it's best practice to avoid conflict of interest, not to engage a COS who is also from the same organisation as the ones who provide other supports or services. What about you?
They must have values that align with family. They must support, for me personally, they need to support my daughter and support us in avoiding segregated disability group settings, as that's something that's very primarily important to us. They must have a comprehensive knowledge of my daughter's disability support needs as well. So, and each participant will have their own varying criteria of what they need from a coordinator. So, yeah, ask questions, find out about whether they're the right fit.
Nice one. And of course, you have the choice of coordinators anytime. We'll go on to talk about that in a minute. So looking at the next slide, we are looking to know, how do we know what to expect from the NDIA? So knowledge is power. You'll hear us say that quite a bit in these recordings. Knowing some of these documents, the NDIS Participant Service Agreement, Service Guarantee, and the Participant Service Improvement Plan can really help give you knowledge and power on what to expect. It's not all about waiting for them to tell you. It's great for you to know as well. So the Service Agreement Guarantee, Participant Service Guarantee, sets clear timeframes with all of the different processes. And the Improvement Plan document is about what NDIA are working towards. So we encourage you to be familiar with this. The experiences of participants are varied. However, we need to hold the NDIA accountable to meet their own improvement plan and the participant guarantee. To do this, we first must follow the processes. But if the processes fail, we then need to hold them accountable. Bureaucratic challenges we face with NDIS are not new to disability service land. The system prior to the NDIS was even more difficult to navigate with far less transparency. But we do know we have a greater voice than ever before. You can access the Family Advocacy's NDIS troubleshooting guide on our website, and that contains links to address challenges with services. Systems like the NDIS are forever changing, and there will be times when you'll be unaware of new information. So it's really helpful to become comfortable in yourself to ask the questions. It's the only way you've got to do it. So gain confidence in asking questions wherever you are, whether it's a meeting or online, wherever you're reading in your documents, etc. Find out. Okay.
So points of contact for the NDIS. The usual access points are the top 4 on the slide, which you are most likely familiar with. If not, well, you've got access to this slide now. So we also want to let you know about other internal teams. So we are telling you about the tech advisory team so that if you feel that an LAC or a planner are not understanding the details within your evidence, you can ask if they could access the support of the technical advisory team. The complex pathway team, for participants who have complex needs, frequently access numerous service systems, you may be able to be referred to the complex pathway via a LAC or a planner. Note, there are specific criteria to access this pathway. So example, it could be complex health needs, homelessness, incarceration. So there is a criteria, but you can always request an LAC or a planner refer you. And if they say they can't, ask them why and get a little bit more information. Again, asking more questions. So the National Access Team for Homeless Participants takes referrals from planners, LACs and coordinators of supports. And we have further information. If you would like to contact Family Advocacy, we could assist you down this path as well. So when NDIS participants with exceptional complex support needs are in crisis, there is an NDIS process that can be actioned by first responders or hospitals, including acute mental health services, police, ambulance and justice officers. So these professionals can refer people in crisis after business hours, on weekends and on public holidays. So they can be referred to the NDIS Crisis After Hours Referral Service. So we're letting you know this in case you are in a situation and you can access the first responders. They can request this for you. The responsibilities of the NDIS or other service systems. So NDIS is not a magic pill. It doesn't take over all other service systems. The service systems that the community are able to access are there for people with disabilities also. So people with disabilities have the same rights of access to these services as all Australians. The National Disability Strategy, Creating Inclusive Communities Together, aims to maximise the potential and participation of people with disabilities. The NDIS supports people with disabilities support needs unless it is the responsibility of another service system. So for example, funding for out of hours school care falls under the state government's education department. And we get lots of phone calls in this area, and we are more than happy to take inquiries and unpack people's individual situations in this space. Family Advocacy is aware that many people have barriers accessing these typical supports, and we encourage you to call for support to identify a way forward.
Now, looking at this slide, it's always good to know where you stand when your family is accessing the NDIS. Some things are family business and some things are NDIS business, and it's always good to not blur those lines. So if you're looking on the family business column, creating a vision, writing goals, identifying reasonable and necessary supports are your side of things, so your business. And then if you're looking at the NDIS side, they've then got their own business. One thing we're hearing often, or a few times, is that LACs are requesting to see invoices during planning meetings. This is not really their role. As participants and nominees, it is our role to keep records of plan expenditures and provide these records in case of an audit. But it's always good to ask the LAC why they are asking this, what's the reasoning behind it, and if it is a good reason, then to give you some time to organise this and provide them. We have heard also that during a planning meeting, a planner has advised that an assistive technology item that was requested, and it was prescribed by their OT, the occupational therapist, the LAC said it was too expensive and you should go to a bargain. We feel that the OT has prescribed it. You should be trusting your OTs, be confident with your therapist and their expertise. The NDIS planner role is to respect that prescriber, and if they're not convinced that the item is appropriate, then they should follow it up with the prescribing therapist, not family business. So a couple of blurred lines there, but it was good to keep in mind.
And the planner goes to the NDIA technical assistance team as well, so that's another option as well. So again, that's difference between family business and NDIS business.
Yeah, good thought. So how do we keep planning meetings on track and maintaining right relationships? You should never feel an imbalance of power in planning meetings. If LACs and planners are well trained and they understand their roles, they should be strengthening a participant's capacity and confidence and not undermining it. If your planning meeting seems to be going off track, this you can do. You can ask your LAC to explain the reason, particular question or statement, to provide you with relevant processes around what they're. You can also request them to provide this information to you in writing. Potentially, you might need to see it in writing, understand it, take your time, and then go back to the meeting. And if that's the case, you can ask for it to be stopped, understand it, and then come back to it. If you're feeling intimidated or unsafe to continue the meeting, at any time you can ask for it to stop and reschedule. Following this, you send an email to the feedback and complaints line and explain the situation and request another planning meeting. And as we said earlier, request another LAC if it is working for you. Anytime within one of these meetings, that's your time to express your needs. Don't fall into that trap of just nodding and doing what you presume you have to. As we were talking about, there's ways that you can request a plan reassessment. It used to be called a plan review. It used to be called a review. And at any time, if your circumstances change, you can request this. If we're looking at a plan rollover, if you hear that term, we suggest asking your LAC to provide exactly what they mean by that. There is no exact documentation of that definition at the moment. So you want to know what you're getting. Ask them to email you with their proposal, what they're planning to change and respond to, etc. Make sure you ask how the email will be sent to you, because some are occurring now with links inside them, and we're all pretty savvy about scammers and virus emails at the moment. So it's always good to ask how that's going to be presented. Now, a light touch review are now called plan variations. And they're usually just to make minor adjustments to the actual build of the plan, not about the funding. You want to confirm that they are just adjusting the one that you're asking about. An example of that is sometimes there's a technical glitch, and plans are coming back agency managed where you actually requested self-managed, or you had self-managed before. This can be usually corrected with a plan variation that can address and can be addressed with a phone call even, or an email. And don't be scared about that. Sometimes it's just a technical glitch, but again, asking questions is going to get you the answer you need. Now, unscheduled plan reassessments can be done. Potentially, you might have 4 months left at the end of your plan, but you're running out of funds. You can request to be brought forward. And prior to the assessment date is when you do it, around about 3 months, 4 months. You will need to provide evidence of why you are asking for this, though, and why you are not going to meet your needs, and why you are requesting the new plan starts early. Of course, it's up to the LAC to communicate this to the planner to identify why, but there's no guarantee that the planner will agree to this. Give us a call and we can discuss that and encourage you to what path to go down. And then, of course, there's the AAT. When going through an AAT appeal and new support needs become apparent during this process, it is possible that the new needs can be addressed during the AAT appeal process. That's the external appeal, which can be actioned if you're not satisfied with the internal review. More about that later. One of the hot tips, though, is we say get decisions and agreements in writing, because sometimes they can be verbal. Sometimes you need to put them into the portal, and do that every single time. So get things in writing. It's always good. Any system, isn't it, Jo?
Yeah, don't assume, get it in writing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so tips for communicating in the NDIS world. So as we've said numerous times today, knowledge is power. So build your knowledge on NDIS language so that the LACs and planners are not the ones that are translating your information into NDIS terms. Establish healthy boundaries, choose your battles. Venting keeps you focused on the problem and prevents you from creating a solution. So NDIS fatigue is a real thing. Identifying any issues, focusing on the solutions, and following formal feedback and complaints processes as necessary will keep things moving rather than getting stuck in the problem. Have a clear understanding of family business versus NDIS business and keep true to your vision. This is relevant when engaging with service providers, support workers, coordinators of supports, LACs, local coordinators, planners, early childhood partners, and so on. It could even be the person that's coming to do home maintenance.